Alright, so welcome everyone. This is the Day Job Gamers podcast. The second one in about 3 years. So we're making good progress here. So I'm joined by a couple of my buddies. I'm joined by Jose of Deaf and Nerdy.
Hey, what up?
Ponesworth, also from Deaf and Nerdy. Ponesworth? Of course.
Well, Pones is actually from Day Job Gamers to begin with.
Well, I feel he's been more on your boat since he hasn't been posting anything on our side. We already got Pones AFK, and then we got Sean, who is of no clan, of no name.
How are you?
Zero limits.
How's it going?
Anyway,
man with no name. Zero limits. Nice to meet you.
Well, with Pones, all he does has to do is show up, and then that's it.
Yeah.
That's his only
He is the show.
contribution.
That's his character arc. He comes in late. It's a sitcom.
sounds about right. Jose, so what do you define as being a nerd, or a gamer, or a geek? You know, it kind of like falls under a similar umbrella.
Is anything that you have a genuine interest for that can be related to comics, movies, pop culture itself, video games, and even its own genre of movies.
Yeah, especially like nowadays, you know, things that we were growing up with are just becoming movies. You know, so granted, like there's been a lot of Spider-Man reboots, but I can definitely see that as a big focal point. Where, you know, maybe back in the 90s, no one really cared about comic books as movies, but now it's like you said with Endgame, it's like a yearly thing. There's like 4 or 5 comic book movies nowadays. But it's crazy to see it evolve from then to now.
Do you feel like it like kind of devalues it a bit, or you think it's like a good thing for the industry?
I think, well, it's definitely good for the movie industry because it's money.
Sure, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
So much, they're rolling in so much money right now.
Agreed. Let's move on to Ponesworth. What do you kind of define as being a nerd, geek, video gamer, in general?
I think the way I define being a nerd or a geek is interest. There's interest in specific genres to an extreme, such as sci-fi and fantasy, and you have to be really invested in them. And I think that's why it's so mainstream now, is because I guess decades ago it wasn't really that common. Like most movies were comedy, romance, or action, and things that were science fiction or fantasy were considered to be like immature or childish. And if people saw you reading those things or watching those things, it would be sort of like antisocial behavior.
Yeah, like
I think what's really changed it is that stuff's become mainstream. Like there's so many movies about, you know, there's Star Wars movies, Star Trek movies, Resident video game movies, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones. So these genres that were used to be niche genres are now the biggest genres. Like comic books, if anything, are a mix of sci-fi and fantasy. You get characters like Superman, who's an alien, hanging out with Shazam, who's a magician. So
True.
I think it's just that, like, it's the genre. If you're interested in anything that's sort of like fantastical, and you're really interested, where you memorize the characters and the worlds and events, you're pretty much a nerd. So it's kind of a low bar,
So, like,
but it's
ingrained kind
become
of.
a low bar. It didn't used to be. It used to be harder to get into that.
Would you even say like you're basically ingrained into it? Like that kind of seems like what you're getting at with how you're describing it.
It's hard to escape it now. Like you can't really go to the theaters and not see something that's nerdy. Like it's what's out there now.
I hear you.
It was harder back in the day.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can definitely attribute that to just like the internet and the media exploding too, because back then, you know, like how long it took information to get around, especially like back in the early like 70s and 60s, where all you had was physical copies of comics, you know, so it wasn't as easy to get a hold of. But now, dude, like even on my phone.
A good example
Go ahead.
is look at like the biggest movies of history. Up until recently, it used to be what? Titanic, was it Gone with the Wind, years or something, and it's like The Force Awakens, Avatar, Endgame. Like it's really changed, and it's because of what's available and what's promoted.
The
ground quakes.
All right.
I think it's mostly that.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to Zero Limits. Sean, what do you think? What do you define as being a nerd or a geek or in the video game culture?
I don't know, man. All I know is nerd culture, so that's normal to me. So that's
just
my
are.
answer. It just are, it just is. I mean, like, you don't really question it, you just roll with the punches. You question it too much, then you stop enjoying what you love.
That's an interesting way to think about it.
Like, I think when it comes to nerd stuff, people get more passionate. Like, they get more upset.
Yeah, they do. They do. I mean, I'm just as guilty. I was the same way with the Star Wars, Clone Wars kind of thing. Because what's it called? They build that fantasy world, and then I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same tone.
And it's funny. That's kind of a way you can tell if you enter nerd territory is if people get upset. Because if you say something and no one cares, you're like, oh, okay, this doesn't really have a fandom.
Because I feel like it's a fantasy world, but then they take the imagination out of the fantasy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you go back and play like games like Knights of the Old Republic, you're immersed. You're like this Jedi. But then if you play the new stuff, it's like, here you go. Here's all the stuff. You don't have to work for any of it. It's all yours. It's like, okay. So it kind of devalues that, let your imagination take over.
Well, only if you're willing to pay money for it.
Ah, there you go. That too.
Makes sense. All right, so then I guess moving on to Pones, what moment did you feel that you identified in this kind of culture, Ponesworth?
Honestly, probably when what got me reading was Star Wars.
Reading? Like the
like
books?
Yeah, like straight up reading. I was like 8 or
Oh,
8.
that's pretty interesting, man.
That's pretty
you
young,
remember
too.
your first book you picked up?
Yeah, it was it like Galaxy of Fear or something like that? It was like horror
Galaxy of
stories
Fear.
in Star Wars.
Oh wait, is that the one where the Star Destroyer is full of zombies?
No, that's a different thing.
I've seen that book cover, Sean. It has like a stormtrooper's like skull like cracked open and
Through
there's blood
a
coming
meat
out.
hook?
Yeah,
that was
like
pretty-
somehow they
that's
get
pretty
infected
rad.
with this weird virus. Like I never
No,
read it.
Galaxy of Fear was a book about these twin brother and sister, and they were living with their uncle, and their uncle had like the secret backstory, and they had to deal with like paranormal stuff and the Empire.
That's pretty cool. That reminds me of like book covers or like Goosebump covers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was kind of like that, but describing it right now, I just realized it's kind of like Gravity Falls.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
Because it's, twin brother and twin sister and their uncle. And he has like secrets and stuff.
It is cool.
Have to find their own adventures.
Right.
Yeah.
I
So
guess
everything
that was
very cool.
that defines their character.
And that's what got me reading. And when I realized, like that got me reading instead of, like Dr. Seuss or something else, I realized my interests were more towards nerdy stuff. Like,
interesting. That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. I
Yeah.
like that.
And it's pretty cool that you did it like at a young age too. Like so it's like definitely like something that's from your almost not your earliest memories, but definitely like since you were little, it's been around you.
I've
It
been
builds-
addicted ever
It
since.
has like a weight behind your nerd persona.
The gravitas.
If only treasure could
I guess for
staunch
me,
the flow
I would have to say
otherworldly corruption.
I remember very vividly when I was maybe like 6, maybe 7, and we moved into the house I currently live in. They got me a Game Boy and Pokemon, the old school Pokemon Red. No, it was blue. It was Squirtle. And I remember I played
nice.
that thing. And it was Christmas, dude. It was Christmas Day, and I remember I sat and I played that till the nighttime and fell asleep with a Game Boy in my hand. And
there's
ever
no
since
backlight
then,
to those things either.
yeah, dude. And ever
Yeah.
since then, like I've always loved video games. Like any video game, like provided it falls into my likes. But I remember like playing that Pokemon game and like, dude, like this is amazing. Like I'm in my own little world. Like I'm catching these monsters and like like making them grow and get stronger. And it was just fun, And you would just lose time in it, and then here we are, like 20 years later, and I still am playing these kind of games. I still play. I'm planning on picking up a new
Yeah.
Pokemon.
The games really get you immersed, and that's what like grabs your attention.
Definitely.
Now that game series is as old as us.
Pokemon.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, definitely. I can agree
It's
with
still
that.
going strong.
The kids.
Because yeah, it
the
was
kids
definitely
are-
around a couple years before it came to the U.S. So I mean, it probably is. right in our age bracket.
So wait, it came out in Japan like the early 90s,
Yeah.
and then it came to US like honestly 95?
Mid 90s,
96?
exactly.
Yeah.
That's right about the time frame.
Like, okay, I guess I'll get into this.
Oh, you collected the Pokemon cards too?
Yeah, just to just you know what it is. You go
Yeah.
to parties with your cousins and everything, they're all doing it.
They're playing
So
them.
you
The funny thing is,
Yeah.
I used to collect them too, and me and my cousin didn't know how to play, so we just would just randomly throw out Chars and be like, oh, I win. Like whoever threw out
Yeah,
Charizard first just automatically won the game.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. All right, he's dead.
Yeah,
what do you
dude, those were fun times.
That's a dragon
Charizard
that
beats him.
fire.
Yeah, we
So
didn't
those are-
even
he's
we
got
didn't even
dragon.
account that stuff, dude. We just like whoever had the strongest card. It's like, okay, well, I just beat you, so you lose. You have no more Pokemon.
It's like I hate this game.
Yeah, we never played it right, to be honest. Same with Yu-Gi-Oh. Like we didn't know how to play it at first. We were just BSing it. Like we would just summon Skull. It's like, oh, like it's in his name. He just gets summoned. Like what? That doesn't make sense.
You mean to tell me you never read the manual?
No,
We never do. I
no,
think
you learn from the playground. Like any kind of cheat, we didn't have internet back then. All the cheats you learn in video games, you learn from word of mouth when your friends in in school, right?
It's like Toy Story. You know how Andy makes up his own rules?
Yeah. Then you get in a fight
Yeah. You fight over who.
on a game of you guys just made up.
let's move on to Jose really quick. So what was your defining moment, Jose, that made you realize you were part of this culture?
Like they're all mixed in. Like I grew up with the original NES, playing Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt. As far as like cartoon and in comics, for me it was the 90s Spider-Man cartoon series that was on Fox Kids at the time.
Oh yeah,
That-
I used to
that-
watch it too.
Carelessness will find
that was my jam, like, to be honest, man. Like for me, and when I got a Game Boy, like as a kid, like Pokemon, I played that nonstop because like when you're a kid, you needed a game to last you a long time, and like Pokemon was the game to pick. But like for me, it probably had to start with watching the Spider-Man TV series, cartoon series as a kid, and watching the original Batman the Animated Series.
Oh yeah, dude, the old 90s Batman was dude, funny enough, as a quick sidebar, the guy that was the main voice actor, something Conroy, he actually might
Kevin Conroy.
yeah, he's gonna get a live action Batman role. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know if he's gonna be like the old Batman in the reboot they're gonna do again, but there's talks that he's gonna get an actual live action portrayal of one of the Bruces, so that should be interesting.
Yeah, because I think that's part of the CW's Crisis on Infinite Earths event they're going to be doing for
Infinite
this
Crisis?
new season coming up. Yeah,
That
yeah,
one's a-
Right,
so-
it just makes me
Crisis on
sad
Infinite Earths.
because I wish what's it called? The one who passed away from Family Guy, Adam West.
Oh,
Adam
yeah.
West, wasn't there? Can you imagine they like spin off to like a multi-universe
And
where
all of
the
them cross
Batmans-
over.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
I gotta
From
admit,
what I've
that'd be really
heard,
cool.
Kevin Conroy is going to be playing old Bruce Wayne because they're going to be doing Batman Beyond.
Ah, okay.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Which is funny because he did the old Bruce voice in Batman Beyond the animated series, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude,
he did.
that's amazing. Like who is someone in the mainstream that you see as a as a popular nerd? So for me, it would have to be George R. R. Martin, just because he's gotten like a lot of aside from like his TV show blowing up, and he's actually been directing shows since like the 90s. But it's just only now in these last like 5 years or so, when Game of Thrones the show was really big, that he's gotten a bigger platform, and he's very vocal about like his upbringing. So like he's like, funny enough, like how you, Jose, and Tones like have always been in comics. Like he's like, since he was a kid, he says he grew up like in a small like project area in New Jersey. So all he really had was comic books. So all his life he's been a part of that, and he's always gone to conventions. So he's a big convention goer as well. So I think that's pretty cool that like he's vocalizing like, hey, like nerds are here, like we're the mainstream now. Like he even says that in like when people ask him, like yeah, like the nerd culture is a mainstream now. It's no longer the subculture that it was in the 90s and beforehand. But let's move on to Pones. Who would be someone you would see in the mainstream as one of the, like, I guess, spearheads of the nerd culture?
Oh, okay. I completely misunderstood the question.
My bad. I might have not phrased it well.
Don't listen.
Well, actually, I thought the question was, who do you know is like
Wait,
A nerd.
who?
spent.
The way you worded it before was like, which
The
nerdy?
struggle is real to pay attention.
Well,
to songs
again,
right now.
I told you there was a couple questions. I only gave you guys like
Ring on the brink.
one of the
A handful.
questions.
Yeah, I heard it like, which unknown person do you think is a nerd? Like, which not that
Well,
well known or
if
not
you
that
want-
well liked?
You can answer it that way if you like.
No, it's difficult the question
because
even more.
I messed up.
Let's
'cause
keep it
I thought it was that. Well, the reason why is because when you said which person do you know is a nerd and isn't that well liked or something.
Well, again, if that's how you want to answer it, then feel free.
Well, because okay, my answer was Ted Cruz. You guys know who Ted Cruz is?
Yes, but how is Ted Cruz a
unfortunately.
nerd? This has actually got me
Because-
interested.
That's the thing. I thought it was a good. When I misunderstood the question, I thought it tied really well into how nerd culture is mainstream now.
Mhm.
Because he's sort of like, he is a nerd in that he loves Star Wars and he watches My Little Pony
What?
and yeah,
Brony?
Wow.
brony. Like just to, I don't
Well,
want to slander.
He has
or
little
anything.
kids, so I mean, I could assume he saw some of that stuff.
That's what I was gonna say.
Okay.
He said in an interview that his daughters watch My Little Pony, but because of that means he watches it too, and he remembers stuff. Because there was a thing where he was at like at some event. I don't even know what it was.
BronyCon.
No, I wish. That'd be funny. No, he was at like some political event, and he was asking some little girl what her favorite pony was, and she said Twilight. And he's like, "Oh yeah, she's cool. I see that show, but my favorite is Applejack. She's the funniest." And so,
It's so
some
random,
people
dude. I
got-
didn't even know that.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, he's not unknown. Like, he's definitely known. Like, he's been a
Yeah.
senator for Texas, I think, a couple terms
The,
now.
the
so.
thing I hooked on was the not well liked or not that
Oh,
liked.
okay. Maybe I might.
'Cause-
I don't think I said that in that way, but I can see where it might have.
I completely misheard the question.
Yeah, it might have been lost in
That's because
translation.
Ponce doesn't pay attention.
That too.
Yeah, that might-
It's definitely that too.
He's not popular. Like among Democrats, he's hated. And
Oh yeah,
Republicans
even
don't like
even
him that much.
yeah, everyone doesn't like that guy. He says weird,
Yeah.
dumb things all the time.
But yet he's a person in power because he might not have won the presidency, but he's a senator, right?
Yeah, he got reelected this past year, so he's gonna be there for 2 more years.
Yeah, like this nerd, has actual political power.
He can make things happen.
Yeah, and he'll like reference things during some of his speeches in his campaign. He'll repeat lines from movies. Like he said, his favorite movie was like Back to the Future. So that's a really good example because that's how mainstream nerd culture is. That this, old, Republican dude.
Yes. Thanks for
watch-
putting the bar high on this topic, Phones. Now we can't top that.
I know, right? Well, speaking of it, Sean, it's your turn.
No, man, you guys can
I'll
actually
give you that. It
Our
doesn't
life
apply.
is taken.
But yeah, Sean, who'd be someone you see in the mainstream as like a nerd you can, not even just relate to, but you can know that he's part of your culture. He's part of like this collective.
Yeah, I think we established earlier off air. It was like Vin Diesel. Vin Diesel is probably probably one of the big nerds out there.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know. Is that what's the guy? He plays a lot of D&D.
He's a big
Till this
D&der.
day, he's still he's a big D&Der. And then what's the guy? He played World of Warcraft.
He did.
And then actually there's an old clip out there with him and what's the guy who passed away, Paul Walker.
Oh, like them playing it together?
Yeah, it's like
Oh, wow.
them two were playing World of Warcraft, and it was like
It does happen that way. I guess.
And Vin Diesel is a good choice.
No, yeah, Vin Diesel's a cool dude. Like, he really is. Like, I think he was even in this one popular YouTube, Michael something, Miser, I think is his name. He does a bunch of D&D on YouTube. Like, he literally
Oh,
just...
yeah.
you've seen him. He's gone on
what's
his...
their segment's called?
He had his own D&D episode, I believe. It was called D and Diesel.
D&D.
Yeah, dude. Like, let me look it up.
I can't remember what it's called, but I know it's on YouTube. Like, every couple months, like, he does, like, a group D&D thingy. But he also does D&D celebrity. So he's done D&D with Stephen Colbert, Vin Diesel, like you said.
You had D and Diesel that was done on the YouTube channel Geek and Sundry.
That's it. Yeah, that's
then
Michael Mercer's, yeah.
Yeah, then you have Celebrity D and D, where this one was with Terry Crews from about a year ago.
He did it with Terry Crews too. That's cool.
Terry Crews is a big nerd too.
He is.
Yeah, he's a PC nerd.
He is. He with his kid. Like they build PCs together and they play Overwatch and other stuff. So yeah, he's definitely part of the nerd culture as well.
It's
And
just
funny
a
enough,
shame
it's only
because
lately.
Yeah, it's a shame that because what's it called? He said like, well, I would really love it to be in a video game, and then he did, but then the game kind of flopped.
I mean, this time will come. And honestly, Terry Crews is such a popular person. He's like what Samuel Jackson was a while back ago. Like he's in everything. Like he hosts like a couple shows. He's on America's Got Talent as a host also. Like he's in movies, he's in TV.
Yeah, he has a good resume.
Yeah, dude, he's everywhere. So like he's definitely popular and definitely a nerd. At least now more than back then. But moving on to Jose, who's someone you see in the mainstream as part of the collective.
Oh, that's gonna be my boy Zachary Levi, man. I mean, with the show with Chuck, that was a show I was addicted to for like 5 years, because I don't know if you guys don't know what the premise of the show Chuck is. Essentially, Zachary Levi plays the main character named Chuck, and he's essentially a guy he's about to hit 30, similar to what our situation is right now, and he works at the TV equivalent of Best Buy, working for the Geek Squad over there in the show. It's called Nerd Herd, and he essentially is at this point of his life where he kind of wants to kind of do something better, because the premise is that back when he was back in Stanford in college, his buddy Bryce Larkin ended up getting kicked out of Stanford, and so that derailed his whole life, because he had all this potential when he was younger, and it isn't until his birthday comes up that his old buddy sends him an email, and he gets downloaded with government secrets into his brain, and so he essentially lives this whole spy life while working at Best Buy as his part-time job as a spy.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, dude, that show has been canceled and brought back by the fans. They had if you're a big fan of Halo, Call of Duty, and just geek and nerd culture, Chuck is the show to kind of point out.
Where's that show on? Is it like on YouTube or something, or is it on something else?
You can find it on Hulu, Netflix. Actually, let me look it up, because I used to. Let me see if I can find it where you can watch it now. But I believe you can find it on Netflix.
That's pretty cool. I mean, I might have to keep my eye on that, to be honest.
Yeah, but Zachary Levi, he's Shazam now.
Yeah, I was about to ask. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Like I'm really bad with names, so I couldn't place who you were talking about. But yeah, so he did the Shazam like last year, right? That's when it came out.
Yeah, but he's always been a big part of stuff. He's always been a part of. He was in Video Game High School in season 1. He was one of the instructors on there.
Really? I love that series. I'm gonna have to rewatch that now. Actually, that's a really good series.
Yeah, he's been very active in the geek culture.
Wait, what teacher was he?
Let me see.
You might have. Oh, man, I can't remember him, but
what's his name? The guy who does the special effects, something Wong.
Eddie Wong.
You're talking about
Eddie Wong. He's the Guitar Hero teacher.
Really?
At least,
I thought he was the racing one.
No, in Video Game High School,
you're right.
he's a guitar teacher.
His son is
the racer.
Racing. Yeah. Okay.
His son.
Yeah.
In the
Asian
show, he's his son,
Asian.
but in real life, I think they're cousins or something, or brothers. I don't remember exactly, but yeah.
Oh.
Pretty interesting to see like these people's humble beginnings.
Yeah, the teacher's name was Ace.
Ace. I don't remember. That sounds like someone like part of like shooting or piloting.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't remember. I haven't seen Video Game High School in a few years. It might be worth rewatching that actually.
I only remember the theme song by the Proto Men.
All right. So to move on to the next question, since we're talking a lot about acceptance and like people that are in the community that are well liked or well known, what's something you guys see that's a part of the culture, but either is frowned upon or not liked as much? So for me, one of the big, so to give an example, one of the big things is kind of like the furry culture. It's an odd thing because like it's the whole idea where like, you know, like you can do what you want and like don't hurt anybody and it's cool, but you know, like
Just
some
don't
of these
think about
people like just have a weird vibe about them, you know. Like I don't know if, I think it was Kenny, so I don't know if you guys were there, but there was an anime expo where we all went, and there was the dance party at the end of the night, like around 8 o'clock. So we're all in there just kind of chilling and sitting. Like I don't dance, so I'm just relaxing in the corner. And out of nowhere, like a line of furries come in. Like I literally mean like 4 people come in full furry
posse.
suits, and they're just doing like the conga line, and they're like running up to everyone, like trying to get people involved. And dude, I was physically seeing people step away from these guys, move away from these guys. They were like in the center for a while, and people just kind of like scattered from the center, and people stopped dancing for a while until they left. So it was a little strange to see, you know.
Yeah.
I remember I remember Kenny too. He got triggered.
You know what it is that what's it called when you have like a common interest like that? I don't know. I guess something like triggers in their mind that what's it called? Everything's accessible. I mean, acceptable at that point. So like it would seem, you know, that little voice in the back of your head, hey, don't do this. It's not socially appropriate. It goes out the window. I think that's what it is. I just think like with them in a group of people, they feel more comfortable doing said thing.
Well,
Kind of like all bets are off.
Is that,
All bets are off kind of mentality. I think that's what it is. Just like too comfortable.
I mean, Ponsworth, is there anything that you see in geek culture that is not so accepted into the mainstream or is frowned upon?
Oh, into the mainstream?
Yeah, well, again, because nerd culture in general is part of the mainstream now, I'm sure there's like something that you see that nerds bring to the table that not everyone agrees with, or like even other nerds are like, hey, you're going kind of too far with this particular subject.
Honestly, I guess the answer would probably be like arguing.
Which one?
Like arguing. Just like in
I heard
general.
Nerd Rage and like in Rage Quitting and all that.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
It's like
fanatic.
that threshold. Yeah, that threshold.
But the reason I picked that one is because it's it's something that is frowned upon by the general public and like the media, because it's taken as being something more serious. Like you can't really have an argument about something without it becoming like, oh, you're. When nerds fight, it gets taken by like, let's say, more like normal people or casuals, as it being like bullying, or I don't know. I mean, I know some people do take it to that extreme. Like I'm definitely sure, because
No, yeah. You went to your friend's Discord and then somebody there got an argument with you over Star Wars.
I was like, dude, I'm just telling you what.
I'm just a messenger here.
Kids.
Oh man.
It's like, no, you don't. Like, you can't argue over stupid stuff. But nerds do argue about stupid stuff, and they get really heated about it and really passionate about arguing about stupid stuff, because it's all, at the end of the day, it's all make believe. So
Yeah, it is.
when
But
people have nerd fights, it's fights about you're arguing about your imagination. Like,
at the end of the day, it's fake.
I think it's because like people, regardless of what group you're part of, you're always gonna have jerks. That's with any group of people, and
I
like,
see what you're saying.
unfortunately, that's just how it's gonna be. Like, there is nothing is really sacred when it comes to that stuff. When it comes down to it.
groups get fragmented all the time.
Yeah.
Like,
What's so for you, Sean? What would be something that's part of the geek culture that other people don't enjoy or are not a fan of?
I brought it up with Pons, and then so when people have that thin line between taking, being a fan, and then taking it like to a religious approach, where they think it's real,
So
where they
fanatic.
oh yeah, I remember.
yeah, fanatics, where like where they like I like anime too. There's some people there who really like anime to the point where
The waifu wars.
No
it's,
wife.
I understand it. You're expressing yourself, but then like there's also a time where like you have to come back to reality.
Can't people be more like me and read my Star Wars books during the lunch breaks? There's no need to take it.
I think it's because you're also a horrible person, Pons.
Here goes the in group fighting that Pons
I
brought
do
up.
have a way of venting. I think if I didn't vent, I'd probably be more.
No, venting is very healthy.
I feel we've been leaving our boy Jose out of this. Jose,
Oh yeah.
enlighten us.
Vent.
What's something in this culture that you think is not as accepted or people shun it?
You mean besides Pons?
Yeah, specifically just aside from Pons. I know Pons is everyone's a little annoying.
Their assistants, yeah. No, for me, I think it still has to be video games because people really don't take it seriously. I mean, in terms of recent years, you've had video games still considered a kids thing. Like, I think even when you go back to what we mentioned earlier, the whatchamacallit, the Fortnite World Championship where that kid won $3 million, the news anchors were kind of scoffing at the idea, oh, this kid already has his life set out. And like when they asked him, how did you get yourself to get to the point? So he says, I shoot it as a job. I dedicate time to train, make sure I keep up with the newest patches to always adjust to the new mechanics that get implemented by the developers. And reporters still say, "Oh, that's cute. He's treating it as a job." But
Sorry, I was going to cut you off, but that reminds me of a football player threatening to leave the team because he didn't like the new design of a helmet. Which is like in retrospect, if you think about it, it's like him trying to adjust to a new patch, and he doesn't like the new patch, and he wants them to do a rollback for all the players because he didn't like that one specific change.
I take that serious. I remember when
What was it?
in World of Warcraft the shoulders were too big. I quit Vent.
Yeah.
Oh, no, when they were too small. When they were too small.
But sorry, Jose, go ahead.
yeah, no, but that was the thing that I think gaming is something that a lot of people kind of disregard too much. Even though you have people on YouTube who make a decent living doing that, and you not only that, you have people on Twitch. I mean, if you look at the stuff that's happened recently, like with the whole Ninja being jumping over to Mixer, he was given the contract by Microsoft. That means he doesn't have to worry about followers and subscribers.
Yeah, stable
anymore.
income.
Yeah, because he has a contract now and he has guaranteed income.
True.
And it's basically like any other celebrity where they get offered a contract to be a part of a platform. Like, people are so quick. I think nowadays, like, even though it's become a big part of mainstream, they're still disregarding gaming as a kid's thing, that's not something to take seriously, that doesn't count as a real job. But when you look at someone like Ninja, he treats it like a career. When he first started out, he would cuss a lot, and now because he goes, okay, from the business side, I'm more appealing to advertisers if I cut back on the language, make sure I appeal to families, because he knows that a big core of his audience are kids.
That's so great. If I could trade playing video games
Being
for
supporter.
yeah, I'd happily do it.
Today,
Well, even when you look at the top people like Markiplier, he was trying to get his engineering degree, but he stopped because he saw, oh, this is a viable career path for me, and he chose to do it because he enjoys it.
True. Do what you love, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm gonna, as a quick little side note to what you're talking about, Jose, I feel like you're just kind of planting the seeds for when we become big and famous. It's like, oh, see, we could have done it all along. Like, we were talking about this years ago.
it's old man mentality.
It's more of an issue with like older people though, because I don't know. I feel like younger people.
Generational differences.
Yeah, because those Twitch gamers and stuff are the new celebrities for younger people.
Yeah, my nephew started streaming too, so.
No,
Yeah,
but
it's
I've
It's something I personally I scoffed at the idea before, but now what's it called? Now you just do it.
Yeah,
it's
I don't know.
it's like a kid pretending to play a guitar in his house back in the day. Nowadays, you pretend to be a streamer, and
pretend
I
to
mean,
be
you
a
could do
streamer.
it.
Yeah.
but you're not at the same level as
you get a
Ninja.
soundboard with some wacky sound effects.
But even then, you don't have to be like super famous to make a decent living off of it. There's a guy that I like from they have a show called Rate Select. Rate Select. They used to be part of a previous show that was part of Spell, because they did this whole video game section called The Loading Bar. And he basically does it to the point where he's not super famous. Like, you wouldn't even say that he's famous, period. But whatchamacallit, he makes a decent amount each month that he can play video games for a living.
To live that life.
I feel like I'm buzzing out a piano on a dinner table. Give me money, give me money, give me money, give me money.
Make the next big hit, Sean. You can do it.
Yeah, do some.
I don't have an internet personality like you guys do.
Yeah, do more tank guides, Sean.
This will be the last question. And I didn't let you guys know earlier, so you guys can take a minute or two to think about it. But so seeing where this culture began, you know, back in like probably like the early 50s, I think like the term nerd, I'd have to look it up again. But I think the term nerd was big in the 50s or 60s. That's when it first kind of came to prominence. And then later on in the 70s or somewhere around there is when it started getting this association to be put towards people that are more geeky or counterculture. So that being said, where do you guys kind of see it going next? You know, we've gone from it being to like no one cares about it to there's a select group of people that are part of the culture to it's pretty much day-to-day thing now. What do you think comes next for this kind of community? And let's start with good old Ponesworth.
Honestly, I don't know. I feel like nerd culture might be too mainstream and people kind of get bored of it. I feel like internet culture is overtaking it a little bit. Like, we're talking about like streamers and stuff, and they don't really play that big of a variety of games. It's usually like the top, like Fortnite, Minecraft. I heard got bigger than Fortnite.
It came back
recently.
for a bit, yeah.
Yeah, it came back.
So they don't really play that many games. So like the pool of nerd stuff that they tend to follow is, or like Avengers Endgame was huge. It made so much money. But then you have stuff like Alita Battle Angel. Not, you know, they didn't make enough to get a sequel. So it's just kind of like.
Maybe China didn't help. China loves CGI. I assume it did good in China.
I think
do better.
I think the thing with Alita is, like, even among the geek culture, like you would have that's basically for people who are big into anime and manga, and even that's a very deep cut. That's a very deep cut. That's and I think because they were trying to, the way they approached it, because again, like going back to Marvel, that's like, it's all about how you pull it off, because Guardians of the Galaxy was a huge deep cut even among comic book nerds, because like that's why the whole bit of like, who, you know what, I'm Star-Lord, man, now you know what, forget it, let's just move on. But that if you would have told people that a movie about a talking raccoon and a tree voiced by Vin Diesel, that says its name, voiced by Vin Diesel, would become one of the hottest things. Like, people would have been crazy, even among the
fans,
geek community. Because they're like, you mean that very old comic book series that no one really liked, even among Marvel fans?
It was less liked. I wouldn't say no one liked, but it was definitely one of the smaller.
Yeah, it was like a small fan.
It was very niche. So I feel like the reason why Alita Battle Angel didn't do so well is because of how it was, one, marketed, and two, how the movie itself was executed. Because with Guardians of the Galaxy, they go, okay, I'm gonna take something that people may not really know about, but I'm gonna present it to a wide audience in a way that they can like enjoy it and have fun with.
Like, it wasn't because I could say I feel like Disney basically adapts the Marvel stories very loosely, like extremely loosely, and they try to give them as much mass appeal as possible. So they're not really faithful adaptations of like the comics. Like a Tom Cruise movie, people went to see it. I'm pretty sure most people didn't know about the comic That's kind of what I mean. Like, I just feel like nerd stuff is so common, and most of the new stuff is just kind of made to appeal to a general audience. Like that one, Edge of Tomorrow, is the big thing was Tom Cruise and
Oh yeah, him being in it.
yeah, like it wasn't, oh, this is a manga. No, it was, this is a Tom Cruise movie. With Alita Battle Angel, they're very kind of like transparent, like, hey, this is based on a manga, and that was all they said, and people were like, oh, that's kind of bull, and they didn't go see it.
But again, I think part of it's how it was marketed. So
Yeah, I
think
see what you're saying.
They were very honest with the marketing. They're just like, oh, you know, here you go, this is what the movie is.
Which I appreciate.
Yeah.
Which is
Over
why
here
I
in the
told
Sean
you.
corner,
But
we
you're
value
different,
this.
Sean. Compare Alita Battle Angel to like Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy advertised itself as an 80s movie.
Well,
more
it's Disney. You can't compete with Disney advertising.
Yeah,
They
no,
got
but I'm
a
saying
lot
the
of
way
money.
they advertise it was it's an 80s movie. Because like, what was the one thing everyone remember? Well, at least the one thing I remember from the trailer was that song, More Than a Feeling or something. No,
Hooked on the
you,
feeling?
Chaka.
Hooked on a Feeling. Yeah,
Ooh, good.
like it was. They marketed like, hey, this is a funny movie, and it does a ton of the 80s, and because of that, it did really well in the U.S. It didn't do so well in other countries because you know other countries didn't have the same 80s. But it wasn't really a faithful adaptation of the comics, and I'm pretty sure if they had done it, it wouldn't have been as successful. Again, I feel like nerd stuff is more of a I feel like it might become like a background thing. It's just something that very used in general, like comics and sci-fi and fantasy. Like there's just gonna be what's common, and something else is gonna replace it. Our culture is just kind of, it's becoming like
Everything.
yeah, it's more superficial. I feel like nerd culture is becoming more superficial, and internet culture is taking its place.
I think in my view, and I kind of hope, but overall everyone realizes to some degree everyone's a nerd about something, you know. Pretty much the definition of a nerd is someone that, at least by like the dictionary standards, is like someone that's very excitable about a subject. Like it's something they're very like all about, you know. It's something that they care deeply for. And if you think about it, you know, like there's people that are like car fans, you know, like they know everything about a car. In a way, they're a nerd about a car. Same thing.
Yeah, they're
with
called car nerds.
Yeah, dude. So it's like, I think ultimately the more people like talk about just nerd culture in general, I think people will come to find that that's basically everything. You know, if you're a really big fan of board games, you know, you're a nerd about that. If you're a really big nerd about hunting, you know, like you're technically a nerd about that if you know everything about it.
I think a lot of stuff is going to be moved to the mainstream because I think with nerd culture, we're already shifting to esports being shown on ESPN. I feel it's just become more of the standard norm. Probably not to the crazy extent as the film. I'm blanking on the name of it. The one that had a lot of done by Steven Spielberg.
Ready Player One?
Yes.
I love that movie.
There you go. I doubt it's ever going to get to that crazy level of it.
With enough
But-
time, maybe.
Yeah, no, like it
Nostalgia.
is within.
That's
It is within
the
the
next
realm of
movie.
possibility.
Nostalgia, the movie.
Yeah, I definitely do feel it is within the realm of possibility that a lot of it is just going to be a part of everyday life the same way, like where people like, and where they watch a game at a bar, they'll just be watching a League or Fortnite matchup on ESPN when they hit up the bar.
Yeah, man. League matches are pretty exciting.
It's a
Or
very
even bar arcades are becoming a big part of at least the Chicago area here, because they're like about a dozen different bar arcades in Chicago alone.
How's that?
There you go.
But
I know this.
yeah, let's move on to the last subject, just so we can
Okay.
kind of start wrapping up the podcast.
I just
for
want
the
to
day.
say Jose's vision is very optimistic.
More, I decided to keep it brief since we have so much more we got to cover.
True.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
true.
so the last subject, which I know is gonna be a little more of a touchy subject, basically in the last 2 weeks, or the last week, it was the two gun shootings that happened in the U.S., one in Ohio and one in El Paso, Texas, and it's it's a tragedy. It's something that I think can be prevented with more background checks and more police involvement with people that have issues. But besides that point, it got to the point with the media, with some Republicans and even the president were blaming video games. They said like, hey, like some of the factors in potentially in this shooting was these violent video games that everyone plays. And to me, that kind of hit a soft spot because this is something that was talked about in the 90s. When GTA and Mortal Kombat were really, really big back then. There was people calling these games the reason why civilization was collapsing. So to kind of see it brought back all over again is just so odd to me. Like I thought by this point in society we would realize, video games aren't a problem. If anything, it's probably helped some people. It's probably kept some people from actually like going crazy with aggression. I mean, maybe there's some select people that aren't the better for playing video games, but I just feel like this particular scenario is just kind of being used as a scapegoat. And I don't know, like, what do you guys kind of think? Like, do you think like putting blame on video games for the gun violence that's going on lately is even like a connection? Like, there's even something there? Go ahead, Sean. It seems like you had something ready to say.
I'm gonna say, yeah, it is a scapegoat. They just want somebody to blame. But at the same time, if it makes them feel any better, they could rebuild the ESRB. If you feel like it's an issue, because it's not government regulated. But ESRB is company owned, privately owned. So,
but like pressure them to like maybe like regulate games a bit more, or like look into it more. Or what do you mean? I see what you're saying, but like extrapolate.
Yeah, sorry, but because if somebody has intent to harm a group of people, blaming video games is not gonna do anything. If a sociopath is out there and at the end of the day he wants to kill people, he's gonna do it. Even if it's you tighten the regulation around California again, he's just gonna drive to Nevada or Utah or whatever and get the gun there.
Which happens, yeah. There's state rules, dude. Like I hear the biggest thing is like the internet right now. Is like people can buy those guns without being tracked as easy.
Germany has lighter gun regulations than we do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And based on their history, is like you can't have like military. Like in Japan, they can't build an army. They can have a defense force, but they can't have an army. Blame video games, you're just dodging the real issue. So I think it's a minor thing. If they do want to do anything, like I said, they just have to rebuild the ESRB and have it government regulated.
I see what you're saying, Tom. All right. How about you, Pone? Got any thoughts on this?
I was actually gonna say, does anyone know why they're blaming video games?
It's them distracting.
The reason I ask is I'm not sure 100% sure if it's true. It's because from what I understood was that the shooter himself made a reference to Call of Duty or something.
That's right, I heard that
manifesto.
too.
That he what?
And so when they were...
He posted up on 8chan that said like...
The people who support gun rights, when they saw that, they just kind of latched onto it as a sort of like smoke screen to keep people from talking about gun control.
Yeah, but even with that,
he wrote like this manifesto about like immigration and stuff on like a website, like 8chan or something like that.
At one point he was quoting Trump in some of his speeches.
That he was afraid of all the immigration and stuff like that.
Texas, and he makes references to other mass shootings, like the one at the mosque in like I forgot where it was,
I think it was the one that happened in
two
Australia.
Other shootings. They were racially motivated, and he was talking about how there was this need to like resist or like fight or kill immigrants because they were taking over the country. But somewhere in there, he threw in like, what do you expect? There's video games are training us how to kill people. Like he mentioned Call of Duty or something like that. It's just to grab onto that. Oh, dude, this guy plays video games, so that must have been it. Not his his
It's
rhetoric or his mental illness or his
Mental
access
state,
to weapons. No, it was video games, and it's been like they've just been like repeating it nonstop ever since then. So I feel cheap trick that it has no substance, because it's been since the 90s.
Exactly.
Since that was going on.
It's an old talking point.
People blamed. Let me look it up. But yeah,
Yeah.
he mentioned something about video games,
Go-
and they latched onto that super
Yeah.
fast.
Go ahead and do that, and then Jose, did you have something you wanted to add on to the conversation while Pones is doing a little bit of research?
Well, again, I feel people are blaming violent video games because it's the old pastime. Because when you have the game, like what you call it, Night Trap, which if you go back and play, it's a ridiculous game, but it became such a big thing that you had United States congressional hearings about it, saying that it was corrupting the American youth and so on. And it's basically the most famous thing you can find now, and that's the thing I found that I find like ridiculous now that you look back on it now. But the whole belief that because when I've come across some interesting arguments about the topic, because you just pulling off to the side of video game violence, you have video game addiction and video game addiction being added to the list of mental illnesses.
That was just this year.
How that was added to the list, and now you have video game gambling being a big issue, where I feel that within the video game community, they go, the whole loot boxes preying upon people who may have a gambling addiction, or basically trying to create a gambling addiction within
Impulse control kind of stuff.
within the player base through loot boxes and microtransaction. That is a real thing, because video games, and I've never felt that video games themselves are training me for it, because I may have played Mass Effect, GTA, but if you were to give me a real life gun, I wouldn't know how to shoot a gun, and most likely I would hold a rifle in the wrong way, and it would dislocate my shoulder because I don't have it properly mounted on my shoulder. Japan alone has way more of an active video game community going on there, and they don't deal with violence that gets associated to video games. You may have hikikomori. I'm pretty sure I just butchered the pronunciation. Where you basically have people who are shut-ins who play nothing but video games because they don't like to be outside, and they just keep themselves all up in a room, and so they use video games. But I think people tend to forget that Japan plays much more violent video games.
I found his one reference to video games, and it was when he was talking about anyone else planning an attack. He was giving advice,
On
he was
how
saying
to.
and all he said was that if you're planning an attack, don't attack a heavily guarded area, because it would fulfill your fantasy of being a super soldier like Call of Duty. And that was it. He said attack a lightly defended target, like a low security target. That's it. That was all he said.
That's interesting. So I mean, they're basically extrapolating from that one phrase, I think. That's what it sounds like to me. Because dude, there's even been research there hasn't been any direct correlation between video game violence and regular violence. Now, what Jose said about there being video game addiction, there's correlation there. There's proof there. People have done their research and find people can get addicted to this stuff, and then that's an issue. But there hasn't been anything found where it's hey, this guy plays this video game, he's gonna go out and do XYZ violent thing. It just doesn't happen that way. At least not what's been found with research.
But even then, within the realm of video game addiction, they're I remember when they were putting it. Let me try to find it. But they were playing a little bit too loose on what can count as video game addiction. Because with us, I think if we were to follow the guidelines, we might fall under that video game addiction. But with us, we're people who have day job gamers, in fact. Where we don't have a lot of spare time, and for us, the way we hang out is that because we don't have the spare time to meet up in person and hang out and at a bar, or like we always try to do the barbecue and stuff like whenever we can. Well, even then we can't always make it because our schedules are so sporadic. But the way we've hung out is to play games online. Like Halo was our go-to person when we, for the longest when we were all on Xbox. And then when we gravitated towards PC, we started exploring other games. A good chunk was Heroes of the Storm because that was a game all 5 of us can play at any given time. And like I feel when it comes to video games, people tend to forget how much good video games can actually do. Because I remember
and sayings and whatnot. But yeah, before we go to the outros, I'll go around you guys, and if there's anything you want to say, bring up, shout outs, anything like that, feel free. Well, seeing as Sean's so eager, you got any final words, Sean?
I mean, you are streaming now.
I am streaming, so if you want to follow me,
what's your gamer tag for your stream on Twitch?
It is Zero Limits 89 with 2 9s, and then you can catch me streaming almost every other day.
Nice. And you're mostly doing Final Fantasy, like you said, or are you gonna do anything else?
Final Fantasy. I'm thinking about doing a mod showcase of Resident Evil or like Skyrim. What's the new? What's new? What's bee's knees?
Yeah. No, I definitely know you can do a lot of Skyrim stuff. I know you're a big fan of it, and you definitely got deep in the mods on that game.
So if you want to see some Resident Evil gameplay with lingerie, then yeah,
cool. I'll make sure. Yeah, I'll make sure to link your Twitch on the YouTube episode.
And out of everyone in the DJ Gamers channel, Sean's the one who actually got some decent views. I'm looking back at with the
WoW tutorial
Warrior patch back in.
It was 3 years ago.
Pandaria, that was Pandaria, yeah. That was
back in 2014, and he posted it back in October in 2014.
Damn,
and
that's a lot of it,
and I'm looking at it now. This thing has over 1,000 views on it, the most we've ever had.
1,000? Nice.
It's like almost worth a quarter.
Yeah.
Nice.
You gotta find Albert. Be like, "Where's my money?"
Yeah, right.
I want rep mention.
Yeah. All right. Ponesworth, you got any shout outs or final words or anything like that for our humble viewers?
Not really. Although I've been getting into this one show, and I don't know how popular it is. It's Game of Thrones. I'm barely on season 3.
I've never heard of it, man. It might be something worth looking into.
It's new to me. You might start this new fan base if you can get people into it.
Yeah, dude, get it going.
I'm really looking forward to the ending because I'm really invested right now. I know what happens to these.
There's nothing in this world can stop this momentum.
Nothing at all. All right, Jose, you got anything you'd like to say? Any shout outs? Anything like that?
Yeah, like with me, I host a site and Twitch and YouTube channel called Definerdy. You can find me on definerdy.com. That's where you post, and on Twitch at Definerdy, and also on Facebook.com/Definerdy. That's the biggest part of the thing I always try to do. Is the main focus of the whole site is to focus on geek and nerd culture, but through the lens of accessibility, to make sure that people with different disabilities are some things that people may not even know about. For the most part, I've tried to do videos, but because I'll be moving to New York, that's kind of taken up the main focus of my attention. So I've been streaming regularly with Tarzan and Bones here every Sunday, like around 12 o'clock Central Time Zone, or basically I'm 2 hours ahead of you guys. From California's time. Yeah.
All right, cool.
So you can find me there.
Yeah, I'll try and you listed a lot of things, so maybe I'll just put your Definerdy channel or webpage and probably your Twitch. But I'll see if I have room. I'll put everything down there.
Everything's linked together. If you just Google Definerdy, you'll find a YouTube channel pretty easily, or the website, and that will link you straight to the YouTube, the Twitch, and to the Facebook as well.
All right, yeah, and that'll be one of the main ones I link. And then as far as for me, I'm hoping to get this Day Job Gamers channel going again. We have Sean/Zero Limits here streaming on Twitch, so hopefully he'll add some videos over time to the Day Job Gamer channel. And aside from what I might be doing, I'm still working on the D&D online. Hopefully, if not this month, early next month, I do want to start it. And basically, it'll be a couple of us that are talking now, and then some other friends who will just jump on Discord, and we'll just, do a campaign. We'll see how it goes. Aside from that, still doing the Twitch. I try and stream every day for at least an hour or two if I have the time. Normally Dota or Cards and Castles, and I might start throwing in some Darkest Dungeon again. And what was that other game I was trying to get back onto? Sekiro? Just because I still have to beat it. I think I'm only in like the first 2 bosses, so I definitely have a lot more to play on there.
Because you are solid.
First, did you just say the first 2 bosses?
Only the first 2 bosses, yep.
Wow.
Wow.
I'm pretty
No,
close.
I'm not sarcastic.
It sounds like you're not impressed.
No. I'm actually like intimidated. Like
It's a hard dude.
like holy crap! Because I know you've played what's it called? Dark Souls? Yeah. I know you're a Dark Souls fan, and the fact that you haven't like gotten past the second boss scares me.
Well,
And,
it's not that I haven't gotten past it. It's just like I haven't been putting time into it. Like around the time I got that game, I got Rogue Legacy, and I played that religiously for like a week straight. So by the time I finished that, then I started playing Dota Overlords or Underlords. So a lot of my
Dude,
time's
that's
been
a
going to
good
that
game.
too. So I just
Yeah.
haven't been putting time into the single player games. Sadly, I've been doing just a lot of multiplayer stuff. But I do want to beat that game. Like you said, I'm a big Dark Souls fan, so I mean it's right up my alley in the games I like. But I do want to beat it. I just haven't put the time in. I think I have like 3 hours or something. It's basically nothing compared to like Dark Souls time. But yeah, don't. I mean, it's a hard game, but trust me, it's not like that hard.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like the hardest game ever.
Yeah, I would give. I don't know. I mean, I would.
It's a high bar.
Yeah, it's tough to say what's a hard game nowadays, because like a lot of the games I play, like when I played Cuphead, I could have swore that was like really freaking tough. I still haven't beat it, and honestly, I still need like one more island. So I mean, that was a really tough game. But I don't
I wonder
know.
how far Kenny's on it. Kenny was a huge fan.
He might have beat it. Kenny's
Yeah?
that kind of achiever. But yeah, I think with that, guys, we'll leave it at that. Thanks for joining us. This was a collaboration of Day Job Gamers and Def and Nerdy, bringing you episode 2 of the podcast for Day Job Gamers. And yeah, so just to like give everyone his name again, today's host was me, Tarzan, Sean /Zero Limits, Ponesworth, and Jose /0405. So yeah, thanks for joining us, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Later
out.
days.